Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's another beautiful afternoon here, and I'm pleased to be back on your screens. I'm pleased to be back here talking to you again about this important dream, which is the Liberian Dream. About 2 weeks ago, we were here and we were focusing on the first pillar of what we call the Liberian Dream. And our first pillar was community-driven solutions. How can we start to look at our problems through our own eyes as Liberians, rather than always looking at it through the eyes of other people? We cannot continue to think about problems based on what other people have done. We need to be able to understand our problems based on our own community. Those of you who joined us 2 weeks ago, I'm just trying to recap. You remember, it's important. Like I said, when I was closing off that session, we love the Ghanaian story. We love the Sierra Leonean story. We love the Ivorian story. But we must own the Liberian story, regardless of how tricky that story is, regardless of how complicated that story is. And that is the reason why we need to start thinking about what are Liberian innovations. No matter how little it is our job to improve it, to continue to develop it, to continue to invest in it. Because you know what? No other person from anywhere will be able to solve our problems for us. It's going to come down to ourselves thinking through our problems based on the solutions in our community. I told somebody the last time, the NGOs will come and go. All the other organizations, our international partners will come and go, but we will remain. Our way of life will remain. Liberia has outlasted every single president or political party, and Liberia has still remained. So let us start to think about problems through our own community-driven solution, because the Liberian dream is something that everybody has to share. The young boy in West Point, the young girl in Banga, the woman in Ganta, the man in Plebo, wherever you are, in Zwedru, we have to make sure, whether it is the farmers, whether it's the doctors, whether it's the security guards, whether it's the old man selling beta balls in the market, we need to make sure this dream is something that everybody sees themselves participating in. And the only way we can do that is if we start to rely on community-driven solutions to solve our problems rather than dismiss them. Today, we're going to be talking about the second pillar of the Liberian Dream, and it's something I like to call culturally responsive systems. And this is important for me because I've always asked the question to many people when I talk to them: how many times have you seen, anytime we have a problem in Liberia, for us to start to ask our own people and find out what we can do? Instead, we often turn up, we have to go look to the international community, or we have to come to the United States, or we have to bring international experts, when the problems we are talking about many times are problems we ourselves know the solutions to the point where when we bring in our international friends and partners, sometimes the ideas that they are bringing do not even make sense. But we subject ourselves to accepting it because we are afraid that they will not give us the money if we don't accept it, instead of us providing the leadership. So today I'll talk about culturally responsive systems in the sense that all of our problems, almost all of our problems, already have solutions rooted in our culture. And I'll give you an example. There are two ways we can look at culturally responsive systems. One is symbolic, right? And let me tell you what I mean by symbolic. I will use Ghana as an example. How many of you have seen the Ghanaian presidential palace, the new one they just built? It is designed as the Ghanaian traditional stool, the traditional stool that the Ghanaians use. Those of you who live in Ghana know that. The presidential palace, they created an architectural design for that building that is the exact replica of the Ghanaian traditional stool. You know what that does? When the young boy walking down the street past that building looks at it, he sees himself in that. That looks familiar. When the young girl walks down the street, she sees herself in that. It looks familiar. So symbolic, culturally responsive system can also be symbolic. Let me give you another example on the opposite side in Liberia. We now have buildings going up in our country that have Chinese writings on them, that looks like Chinese architecture. And these are not private Chinese embassy buildings. These are public government buildings. What happened to writings in Gil? What happened to writings in Pele on our building? What happened to it looking like the Palava Hut? So we're okay with other people coming in and implementing and celebrating their culture in our country, but then we have a problem with it. You know what we've done to ourselves? We've relegated our culture to being what I call content. We've decided to use our culture as content. Whenever we got big guests or VIPs come to visit, then we bring out our culture to use it to celebrate them. As soon as they leave, we throw away our culture instead of making it part of our everyday lives. And I'm going to touch on a very controversial topic today. Some of you might disagree with me, and that is okay, because too many people have been afraid to talk about this. And I'm going to touch on the topic which cuts right through when we come to this cultural conversation: the issue of female genital mutilation. Listen to me. 200 years ago, none of our people or ancestors had a clue as to the dangers and harm that is caused by female genital mutilation, which is part of our culture. And by the way, it's not unique to Liberia. It's also part of many European cultures. It's a part of many cultures around the world. We did not know how harmful and dangerous this practice was to women. Fast forward to now. Thanks to science, we've come to understand and learn that this is a very dangerous practice, right? What do? Our first reaction is to condemn our entire culture as a result of one practice. Now, tell me, is female genital mutilation the only practice in our culture? What have we done? We've organized conferences in Washington, D.C., where we bring the elites of our society. To Washington, D.C. and give them padams to live large and come and do whiteboard presentation about female genital mutilation. And then we leave our traditional people who actually practice and live and breathe it. We leave them out of the conversation. We don't bring them to the table so that we can all brainstorm solutions together. But when we go back to Liberia, then we set up a war against them. The war against female genital mutilation without involving them in the discussion. Look, let's get it straight. Female genital mutilation is a bad practice. It's a harmful practice, especially when it comes to females. But let's get it straight. When did you find that out? Let's get it straight. We are not going to solve this problem by setting up a battlefield, us versus them. The only way we will solve this problem is if we bring our elders as equal partners to the table. And the same way we've come to understand the dangers and harms that this causes, bring them to the place of understanding, but also empower them. Empower them to be part of the change. We can keep having this debate on and on for the next few decades until we can start to look at culturally responsive systems to change the things that we know. Look, our culture must evolve. There are things about our culture that we've learned now. It's not okay. It's not healthy. It's harmful. But we can throw our entire culture away because of harmful practices. What we can do is we can evolve our culture by getting rid of the harmful practices. I'm yet to see any government or any international body that has come to the table, bring our traditional leaders to the table. The same way when you set up your committees and conferences in Washington, D.C., how much do you spend? Sometimes you spend millions of dollars to host these conferences. When last any of our partners or governments have gone to the villages, pulled together our elders, our zoes, and our chiefs, and said we will invest $200,000 in the committee of you elders, chiefs, and zoes. For 6 months, we need you to brainstorm. The danger of female genital mutilation is real. We need you to brainstorm what solutions we can bring about to do away with this practice. We all need to agree upon it. Let's empower them too to be part of the solutions. But no, what do? We set it up as a battlefield without even finding an opportunity to engage. Look, 30 years from now, we will be the new elders. How can we have people leading the change against female genital mutilation, most of them that sometimes don't even know very little about these traditional practices? Let's empower our people, because that is where real sustainable change will come from, when they are part of the solution. Nobody wants to talk about this. Everybody mumble. I am saying female genital mutilation is a bad practice. It's a harmful practice to women. And we have a responsibility as Liberians to be at the forefront of leading this, and not just one side of our society, all sides. We need to bring our elders to the table. We need to bring our zoes to the table. We need to bring them to the reality of understanding the dangers of this, and then we need to empower them in changing it. Saying it is dangerous is not enough. We need to be part of the solution. Think about it. We cannot throw away our culture because of harmful practices we've noticed. We must work hard to change those practices. We shouldn't just talk about it. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to culturally responsive systems. Look, your identity is rooted in your culture, which happens to be part of it as well as your language. Many cultures, like in the West, there are all kinds of bad practices in the West here that were part of their culture as well. What did they do? Did they throw their culture away? No, they evolve it. We cannot use our culture as content. We have an economic problem in our country. The first thought that comes to our mind is to go to the IMF and the World Bank. And then when they come to give us the things, these systems they come and build, which does not make sense to our way of life. It does not make sense. It's completely disconnected, and we wonder why every World Bank program in Liberia has failed. We wonder why every IMF program has failed. The same thing we do. Look, I live in Canada here. When you come to Canada, right, as a newcomer, you know what to do? They got something called Canadian experience. Sometimes it takes you a whole year before you get to the point of understanding the norms and cultures of how things work here. And to be able to be successful here, you must be able to operate within that space. Also, let's go to Liberia. All these NGOs that fly in, some of them come to go deep in our interior to work. As soon as they come, we make them the head already. We make them to be the ones who call the shots. What happened to them gaining the Liberian experience? What happened to them understanding that you need to hire Liberians first to help you understand the lay of this land? All of the systems we got in our country, they are borrowed. All of them are borrowed. We borrowed them from the West. We borrowed them from the West. We're here talking about our own culture. If there are problems in it, we lead the change. We don't wait for other people to come and tell us. I ask people all the time, how many of us have taken the time to even understand our own culture before we are calling for change in it? You cannot change something you don't understand. You can only change something that you understand because you will know how to implement the change. We turn our culture into content. I see President, we are touring the country. Everywhere he goes, people want to display the culture. And then as soon as he leaves, we're no longer part of that culture. We see all of our officials and leaders, all of them displaying the culture. But as soon as they leave, the culture then go back. Our culture must evolve, and nobody will evolve it for us. We ourselves will have to evolve our culture because it is our responsibility. Nobody else will do it for us. So let me say it to you today, until Liberia can start changing our approach to how we build our system, whether it's government, whether it's political, whatever systems, until we can start changing how we approach building our system, until they can be deeply rooted in our way of life and culture, it will not work. Let's look at taxes. The way we implement tax collection in life, it will not work. It's a Eurocentric, westernized system of taxes. Let me give you an idea. I live in Canada, democracy as we know it. In Canada, there is a unique form of democracy called the Westminster system, practiced by other countries too, especially countries that were colonized by Great Britain. In Canada, the head of our government here is the Queen of England. Perpetually, she's not elected. So the Queen of England has the power to suspend the elected representatives of the people, the Canadian Parliament. Now, people will tell you it's symbolic. However, the Prime Minister has the power to go to the Queen and ask for permission to suspend Parliament, because if they're trying to pass a legislation and they figure out a Parliament, they don't have enough votes in Parliament to pass it, or it might bring the government to a deadlock, the Prime Minister has the power to go to the Queen and ask for permission to suspend the Parliament. And while the Parliament is on suspension, then the government can figure itself or reorganize itself before they bring Parliament back. Now imagine, right? The first thing we do in our countries when we get there with implementing our democracy, the first thing we do, we call our own cultural system archaic and way back. We try to erase it. Please show me, where is the space for our traditional cultures within our form of democracy in Liberia? There's no space for them. We have them as caricatures and content. We only bring them out when we think they have a space somewhere they can sit and participate in programs and ceremonies. They do not have an active role. They are not a central part of our governance system. We cannot continue to borrow everybody else's stuff. We will leave a few minutes at the end to get to take in some questions and comments. Those of you who might want to call, the numbers on the screen, so just prepare yourself to call in. So let me tell you one thing. Our problems in Liberia We continue to go over it over and over because all of them are borrowed. Let me give you an example. We wanted to do a constitution. Now, don't get me wrong. There is nothing wrong with looking at examples. When you go to other places, you see people who've done something well. You can look at their examples and try to figure out how it's adaptable to you. But the mistake we made and continue to make is we think we can just photocopy it and paste it. What did we do? We went and took the American Constitution, practically inserted Liberia in it to try and make it work in Liberia. So today we are living a constitutional crisis because the systems and cultures that underlie the Americans being able to support their constitution, we do not have it. So we're walking around with a constitution like we don't even have the ability to determine who a Liberian citizen is. Because we came and photocopied the system of birth certificates being given in official hospitals. Except that we don't even have the capacity to build proper hospitals across the country. So as a result of that, according to the United Nations, up to 65% of Liberians in Liberia have no record of existence. They don't exist anywhere. Which means if they were born by some kind of male wife in a village somewhere behind a house or whatever, and they've never owned a passport, never traveled or anything, they have no record that they exist because they don't have a birth certificate. Think about it when the war came. Most of our birth certificates and the records were on paper. Right? Most of them stay in temple adjusted, water came and destroy everything. So where do we have a record? Think about a recent thing that happened in the Liberian Senate. Ndubuisi Nwambudike claimed to be a Liberian citizen. Yeah, he was naturalized. He produced a certificate of naturalization. Everybody said it was fake, except that no one was able to go to any archive and any record to produce originals or not, to show what it looks like, to compare it to his certificate. So it is still a debate in the public sphere as to whether it was fake or not. This would have been simple. Because again, this is the problem of photocopying systems that we don't. Culturally responsive system is our way to go. Think about it. When we as a country have the ability to build hospitals across Liberia everywhere, or systems that can support our traditional people being part of the system, 65% of them do not exist in Liberia. There's no record of their existence anywhere. This is the reason why people can cross the border from Guinea and come and speak better Liberian and say they are Liberians. There's nothing you can do about it. But what do? We are here fighting over people in the diaspora and dual citizenship business when we're not even thinking to say, you know what, let's sit down. What is a way that we can keep track of who we are? The last time I showed somebody it, in the villages, the traditional huts that the people built, right? For hundreds of years, they've been using the huts. Some of those huts are even older than you. They have no electricity, but those huts are cool. When the sun is hot and you go in a hut in the night, it's it cools down. They use their bare hands to build it. What have we done for 174 years? None of us have thought that that is a type of technology to understand. Can we evolve it? Can we build on it? So that today, that same technology, when we are building new houses for people in the villages, it will look like their same old huts, except that it's been evolved into a mooring system. Because it worked. Do not try to replace your culture. It is not possible to replace your culture because it's who you are. You will look lost. You will look like a zombie. Let me give you an example of languages. I got my friends in Norway. When you go to Norway, you have to go to school for 1 year to learn how to speak Norwegian. In Canada, to work for the Canadian government, you have to speak both English and French because it's the two official languages. What's wrong in Liberia with us building a school system that embeds our local dialects in our education system? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with saying all of the schools in Grand Bassa, let's say if we choose one language and one tribe to be our national language, let's assume Pele. I'm being more simplistic here. Let's say Pele. What's wrong with building Pele into the curriculum of all the schools? We had the audacity and guts to build French into our curriculum. You force us when we're in school. You force us to take French, and in some cases, you force us to pass the subject French to make it to the next class. But you're telling me you can do the same thing with Bassa. You're telling me you can do the same thing with Pele. You went to Norway. In 1 year, you learned to speak Norwegian. You went to Ghana. Without any instruction, without any school, you learned to speak Twi, just picking it up on the streets. We went to Cote d'Ivoire. We learned to speak Yakuba. We learn to speak broken French, just speaking it up in the streets without being taught it anywhere. But you come to Liberia, you tell us we must learn to speak French in our schools. But we can learn to speak Bassa there. We can learn to speak Gio there. We can learn to speak Pele there. That is the biggest joke of the century. What's wrong? Okay, people say, oh, but how you would choose one darling when we get many darlings? Let me give you an example. If you live in Grand Bassa County, what's wrong with enshrining Grand Bassa in the school curriculum there? That all the children who in Grand Bassa, before they finish high school, they will know, look, when kids are younger, learning language is as easy as breeze when you teach them it. What's wrong with inserting Bassa in the schools, in the school's curriculum in Grand Bassa? Bassa should be a mandatory language course. In the school curriculum in Nimba, Mano and Gio should be mandatory. You can choose either one. In Lofa, there are about 4 of them. All 4, Bandi, Mandingo, Loma, Pele, all of them should be inserted in the curriculum, and you can have the option of choosing one. How difficult is that? Can you imagine these people force us to learn French in Liberia? It's part of our curriculum. And you telling me that we don't have a duty or responsibility to learn Kio or Pele or Bassa or Kisi? Please help me understand. The Kisi people too in Lofa as well. Help me understand. And then we sit here, we're wondering why everything around us is collapsing. Everything around us is collapsing. We're wondering, even the simple Liberian English that we all speak. And this is why I've had my beef with all Liberian presidents who take up the dream, the opportunity to speak to the nation. This is not at the UN, it's in Liberia. And you're fighting to speak standard English when 80% of our population cannot speak, read, or write proper English. But guess what? 100% of our population can speak, read, and understand Liberian English. Can speak and understand Liberian English. So what's wrong with the President of the Republic of Liberia spending the first 30 minutes of their speech in Liberian English? You're speaking to your people, or rather 100% of the nation, so that even the old man in Rele market can turn on their radio when the president is speaking. The people in Nima can turn on their radio when the president is speaking, because everybody can understand that. The opportunity to speak to your people is not the place to show your academic prowess. The opportunity to speak to your people is not the place to show your linguistic ability. No, it's the place to speak in a way that 100% of them can understand what you're talking about. And we will keep hounding this down. If you people had the ability and the audacity to insert French into our school curriculum, when we talk about building culturally responsive systems, how come you could not put Pele in our curriculum? How come you can put Kisi and Bassa and Gio and Kra and Mano and all of them? Why they are not in our curriculum? And when you talk to people, make it look like it's rocket science. People make it look like it's too difficult to actually do. No, it's not. You know why we are refusing to do it? Because we've learned that everything else, we've been taught to believe that everything else is better than ourselves. So we keep running away from ourselves. We want to be everybody else except ourselves. And let me tell you, we would never find sustainable solutions to our problem if they're not rooted in culturally responsive systems. Because you know what? When the people who fix the system, then that system is part of their way of life. When something is broken, they can fix it because they know what's broken. They build it. It's a part of their way of life. But when you borrow all your economic system, your cultural system, your curriculum, you borrow it from the West and bring it to our country. When one thing breaks, nobody even knows how to figure out to improve our educational curriculum. Nobody knows how. Because we borrowed it. We don't have the foundational basis of how it was established. In some cases, we actually stole it. There is nothing wrong with if we can be subjected to learn French and our people are okay with it for us to go to school and learn it, then I'd rather be subjected to learning Kisi as well, or Pele, or Gio, or Mana, or Kran, or Bassa, any one of them. Because you know what? They are innate. I will want to celebrate because they are a part of who I am. We'll begin to take calls, by the way. Maybe, Anthony, we can put some of the comments and questions from the comment section on so we can respond to it. And then the numbers are up there. You can call in if you have a comment to make or question to ask so we can actually take it. But I want to give you one thing. We will not find a sustainable solutions to our problems until we embrace ourselves, until the systems that we are building are rooted in our culture and who we are. And people will give you the excuse that, oh, but my people never taught me Pele, how you will subject me now to or learning Pele or learning Kisi or learning Gio. No, we're not subjecting you to it. We are only begging you to still take up the opportunity to come back to your true self. That's all. We are giving you another opportunity to realize it. What's wrong with that? How is it that our languages, our tribes, our dialects are not mandatory in our curriculums? Y'all, please help me understand this. How is it Liberian English? Anytime a minister or a president or a big leader get ready to talk, even our pastors, how come all of a sudden they go to the semi-series and standard English and only 10% or 20% of the entire nation understands you? You know what, Oman, in the market, really, the president address to the nation is of less importance to them. You know, only 20% take the president's address seriously because only the 20% can understand what is being said. Only them can understand what is being said. You speaking to your people, then you have the audacity to speak in a foreign language? We own now the picture and the colloquia that our we own now, we created it, our innovation. And it's up to us to let people know when you come to Liberia and you want to communicate and communicate effectively, you better start learning how to speak like this. This is embarrassing. And when you talk it, people polarize. And that's why I use the issue of FGM, female genital mutilation, today on the show as an example, because it's the hottest topic. But what are we doing again? Instead of us empowering ourselves to deal with this problem, we think the West has to compose censure on Liberia to get rid of female genital mutilation. You're wasting your time. It is a part of our culture. Let me give you something I've learned in life. Every time somebody feels attacked, whether for good or for bad reason, or whether for the right or the wrong reason, the immediate reaction is to defend. If we continue attacking the native people, if we continue making this a battle line drone, that you either on this against female genital mutilation or you for it, trust me, we'll be here for a long time with no solution. But the moment we come together and get ourselves to agree that this is wrong, but that doesn't mean our culture is wrong. This particular practice is bad. It harms women, but that doesn't mean our culture is bad. So what do? We have one thing then to fix. We know one thing now that we can fix, and that is to get rid of female genital mutilation. And let's empower our traditional people. James Jala says, Johnson, you are explaining the truth about our country's society, but these people that are involved into this situation are very hard to understand. Presently, I'm based in the US. But if you're looking for people to talk to elder and those in Liberia, I will be willing to go back home to impact ideas to them. Yeah, we have to lead. It's part of our responsibility. We have to be part of that leadership. I agree with you, because you know what? 30 to 40 years from now, they will be calling us the next elders. And imagine being an elder and completely ignorant of your own culture. Imagine being an elder without having any understanding about your culture. Dwight Dogba-Port says, Liberians are just not nationalists. The rural to urban migration is our biggest problem. Thank you, Dwight, for your contribution there. Beatrice Young says, indeed, we learn to believe Western cultures are better than ours. So sad. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution, Beatrice. Ben Sanvi, good to see you. Ben says, we are a lost nation with a huge identity problem. I could not agree more, my brother Ben. We've lost our identity. So what we're doing now, we're hopping around the world, trying to be like other people. We want to be Ghanaians. We want to be Nigerians, Sierra Leoneans, everybody except being Liberians. God Give Peter says 11 government. I think you're trying to say Ellen government. We have a project by USAID in Grand Bassa to teach Bassa. We tried it 3 months and it was working, but the government wanted kickbacks before the full project could start. So USAID stopped it today. But also, this is not just the government problem. What's wrong with private schools? Private schools have inserted all kinds of things in your curriculums. So don't wait for the government. If the government not doing it, if you hear they say Leo opening school in Liberia, the day I open school in Liberia, a Liberian dialect will be a mandatory part of that. If your child comes to that school, they will have to learn it. You can put French there. All people are okay learning French. Then what's wrong with ours? Iverson Dollier says, you're right, Leo. We are the cause of our own problems. Thank you. God Give Peters again says, could you imagine we brought experts to teach us our own language from Italy? Yeah, I think you are referring, God Give Peters, you're referring to, like, I remember this story, bringing people from Italy to come help us learn our language and how to even write it and articulate it. Yet, we got PhDs passing around the country. And the phone numbers are up there. Those of you who are not able to comment, if you want to call in to make your point, please call the phone number and we'll be happy to actually take your calls and your comment as well. The number is right there for you on the screen so you can take it. But let's come back to the facts. Ben says something that we're a lost nation. That's why we're struggling. That's why we can't understand anything. In our legislature, look at the laws that we write, how they do not make sense. So today we are in a huge, I keep telling people we are in a constitutional crisis. You can never have proper elections in Liberia because there is no way to independently verify and authenticate who a Liberian citizen is. Anybody can show up in Liberia today and register to vote. Period. There's no way you can prove or deny them. It's not possible. You don't, when 65% of the people who never left Liberia were born in Liberia, have no way to prove that they actually exist other than seeing them one by one. What can we do? This is the problem. The same thing with buildings. Everybody come here, they go to Liberia, they want to try to build a house and make it look like the West. It's a problem. So because of that, you got government buildings in the country. Every government building you go into, it gets dark all day. Any time of the day you enter the building, you feel it's alone in the night. How can we be living in a country like Liberia where the sun rises at 7 a.m. and sets at 7 p.m., where we got 12 months of sunshine? And why does any building in Liberia need to have a light bulb on in a day? Y'all, please help me understand. Emmanuel Jesse said we got a plagiarized system. I agree with you, Emmanuel. That's absolutely right. How? How can you live in a country like Liberia where the sun rises at 7 a.m., says 7 p.m., but every building in the day just dark? Capitol building. You go to Capitol building 12 midday. It's pitch dark. That rotunda is pitch dark as if it was in the night. Again, culturally responsive systems. We don't have enough electricity. I think we have a caller on the line, so I will go to our line right now to take the caller. Caller, are you there? Do we have a caller on the line? All right, we'll wait until we can get our caller in. I don't think we have the caller yet. But again, then our legislature here, we put in referendum talking about changing clauses in the Constitution. The whole Constitution needs to be. Oh, caller, are you there?
I'm here. Is it 404 number?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Go ahead. Please tell us. Please tell us your name first.
From Atlanta, Georgia.
Go ahead.
Neil, thank you so much for always bringing up this topic. It's so important that we tap into our culture, that we tap into our history, that we tap into the essence of who we are as Liberians. And I think most of the leadership that we've had so far have missed that point. For whatever reason, as we grow up, some of us, especially those of us who have been an opportunity to come to the West, we understand what these people were doing when they came in and brought in their language and brought in their culture. They want their culture to survive and in essence, to almost like, for lack of a better word, kill ours. So we have to do all in our power to make sure that our languages survive, that our culture survive. Now with the female genital mutilation thing, like you said, we need to engage our Zols and let our Zols realize that with that female genital mutilation thing, it affects our women in childbirth because of the scar tissue and all of that. And we can still practice our culture, but just try to find a way to eliminate that and perhaps replace it with something else that's meaningful, whether it means teaching women about not being promiscuous and other things, and why the history of why it actually started to prevent certain things. I think that'll be more helpful than to fight them like we're doing, because like you say, it'll cause them to be entrenched in their position that you can't come and tell me how to run my culture or how to run my society. And if you look at everything that we do as bad, we're not going to accept that. And that's what's happening right now. So I thank you so much for what you're doing to enlighten those things about our culture. And I hope that even if the government doesn't get involved, that we get involved in different ways in the private sector, NGOs, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you for calling. And I think we have another caller waiting there. Can we get the next caller?
This is Reverend Molenberg. I mean, I hear something different on this platform, but I was just watching television and you guys I got this number from the television where they are discussing shaping of atoms at the Liberian Freeport.
Mhm.
So there's two different discussions I'm hearing here. So which one are you discussing now?
So we are discussing the Liberian Dream, culturally responsive system. The one you saw is a previous show that was already done. This is the one that's live right now. We're discussing the Liberian Dream, and we're talking about culturally responsive systems.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think that's the one I want to participate in.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. All right. So, like we often saying, when we talk about these things, people like to go straight to the government. Do we have another caller there?
No.
Okay. All right. So, like I was saying, we quick to say what are the solutions? We quick to go straight to the government. I disagree. The government is an important part of it, but let me humbly disagree that the government is not the only part of it. We all have a part to play. We all have our own sphere of influence. Like I keep saying, some of you in the diaspora own schools in Liberia. Some of you own churches in Liberia. This is time to start rethinking it. We're having fraternities, right? In the West. The West has a lot of fraternities, from Freemasons to Knights of someone there even rooted in the church to Knights of St. John, and you name all of them. All of these fraternities, they're great. People are okay with them. People are okay to practice them and show off. None of us know what to do in those fraternities, so none of us can come out here and just criticize it. Again, I say you're only a fool to criticize something you don't know about. I cannot go talking about something I don't know much about. But we have the audacity to think that we can condemn our entire culture simply because there is a practice that has been identified that is not wrong. So, practices that have been identified that are wrong, that we can simply think about how we change and how we go about doing it the right way. Instead, we think we're supposed to replace our entire culture. Let me give you an example. You see a lot of Black Americans and Blacks in Europe and other Western countries that are victims of slavery many years ago. You know why they're struggling today to have an identity? Because their culture, their language was stolen from them so long ago. So as a result of that, they find themselves in this place of not knowing who they really are. They're struggling to come to terms with themselves. This is what will happen to us eventually. If we continue down this path, this is exactly what will happen to us. We get to a place of being like actual zombies with no clue who we really are. And at the same time, you know what? People still call themselves African Americans? Yeah, because they can fully claim to be Americans either. And they can claim it by constitutional rights, but they can claim it by identity and culture because they know that there is something missing who they really were or who they really are. Let's not allow ourselves to get to that place. At least some of us still have semblance of our culture. We still have semblance of some of our real history floating around. Let's embrace it now before it's too late. Trust me, I care less how successful you become in Ghana. I care less how successful you become in Nigeria. I care less how successful you become in Europe, in Australia, in Great Britain, in America. I care less how successful you become. You will never be mistaken to be originally one of them. No. You're always who you are. Embrace your identity. Embrace your culture. Let's stop running away from ourselves. Can you imagine? We have the audacity in our country, our government, to approve buildings and our airport to come up with English and Chinese writings. But nobody ever thought about the fact that it is important for us to set the thing through. How come no building in the whole country have a B writing on it, or a Sapo writing on it, or a Gribble writing on it, or a Pele writing on it? And we have the audacity to turn the ministerial complex, the heart of our bureaucracy, the symbolic essence of our systems, to turn it into Chinese. Look, we can thank the Chinese. We can build a plaque in our compound to dedicate it to them and thank them for their contributions and their gift in making that ministerial complex a reality. We don't have to turn it into China ministerial complex. It's the Liberian ministerial complex. It needs to look like the Liberian ministerial complex, to the point where we even have to bring in Chinese contractors to do the thing for us. And when people talk about it, they say because we don't have the people in Liberia. That's the biggest lie ever told. We will be willing to pay $200 for nylon coat suits that can be popping when the sun hot. In 40-degree sunshine in Liberia, when the sun hot, nylon coat suit that can be popping and jacking our skin. We're willing to pay $200 for it. But people will say it's too expensive to pay $50 for a beautiful woven shirt, hand woven by our people. You know when we wear it? Only when we get big programs. So our culture, our content now. We're not turning our culture into mere content. Whenever there's a big program, then all jump inside it to come and just use it as content for programs. And then when the programs are over, we go back to our Chinese shiny coat suits. Or our fake Louis. People got the audacity to hold fake Louis Vuitton bags in their hand and pay plenty of money for it. But they're not willing to pay $20 for a nicely sewn African cloth bag. But well, you know, that $200 paying for that fake Louis Vuitton bag, they'll say, maybe the bag is strong. That bag is you're doing two things. You are facilitating and promoting fraud. Because whoever made that fake Louis Vuitton bag is illegal. Right? Think about it. People got it. People will rather wear everything fake. But something that is original with some of the highest quality of cotton made in Liberia, no, they will not pay for it. Even if they won't buy it, they think it is supposed to be the cheapest ever. People will spend all their time learning how to fake things from the West to sell it to us for 5 times more. But nobody will spend their time to focus on local Liberian innovations, to say, let's get better at making shirts. Let's get better at making cloth. Let's get better at making drums. Let's get better. When I was in Lofa, the raffia bag, the 4 years we spent in Lofa, I learned how to plait that raffia bag. I had one of that raffia bag from an elementary school. It took me 4 years. One of the raffia bags, rain or shine, I don't need to worry, because the raffia texture is such a way that when it rains, the water just slips on it. I didn't need no plastic material. And guess what? It's environmentally friendly too, because it decomposes very well. Very, very well. So let's ask ourselves, the Liberian dream will be a reality when we start to focus on culturally responsive systems, because everybody will be able to participate. Every Liberian, whether you in Joploke, whether you in Ganta, whether you in Zogui, whether you in Salala, whether you in Morovia, when our systems are rooted within our culture, are designed that way, guess what? Everybody will be able to participate in it. Think about it. Just think about it. The way we design our markets. Same thing, we come to the Western culture, that thing what department stores structured this way, it does not make sense. The same way we do subsistence farming. People think we're supposed to be doing mechanized. I hear even Ministry of Agriculture, everybody talking about doing mechanized. If you can help our people invest in subsistence farming to even just learn how to feed themselves, how are you going to skip that process to start doing mechanized farming? Who will do the mechanized farming? Now they're taking it on to be government responsibility. No. When you empower our people to the point where they realize the value in farming because of the level of attention and investment paid to their small subsistence farming, guess what? It will give them the motivation to want to go into it even deeper. We will take a few more comments. I know a lot of comments have been coming in fast and furious. So Anthony, if you're there with some comments. Emmanuel Jesse said the Constitution needs to be written in all the 16 tribes. Fully agree. I can't disagree with you at all. Austin Bowles said Liberians don't like their own culture. They feel proud practicing Western cultures. If you talk about a Liberian culture, they say, I don't have time for that thing. True. Beatrice Young, our entire identity is a reflection of a Western culture. From our flag down to some of our streets and counties are all a reflection of an enslaved Western mentality. Were the free slaves' mind really free? It baffles me, really. Thanks, Beatrice, for your contribution there. Focus on Liberia says, we have something called traditional wedding, which is relegated to the rear, while the real wedding should be the Western wedding. I have to talk about this. I'm glad Focus on Liberia highlighted this. We go to Liberia, and people would make you think that you're not even married because you went to the church, right? Even if you have your traditional wedding. So the me wedding that we are supposed to elevate are supposed to be the actual thing itself. We relegated it to the back now, and we've taken one. So thank you for that contribution, Focus on Liberia. We can take more comments. Esoteric, my own friend Esoteric here says, how does being culturally astute or inclined help make Liberians or Liberia compete with the rest of the world in areas of technology, engineering, science, and mathematics? This is a great question, and I'd like to take this one on Esoteric. Let me give you one example. Maybe you were not here. I told you about these huts in the villages, right? Our people, some of them have lived in those huts for 3 generations. How is it possible that our people can design a hut with mud, dirt, and sticks by themselves and thatch? And have it survive 3 generations, survive even longer than some of your modern technological buildings that you can build, and in 5 years things start breaking on it, you get to repair it. So the way we can compete with the world is to take that unique innovation, evolve it, develop it, master it, and modernize it. Because you know what? It will be unique to us. That's how countries compete. That's how people compete, by bringing your own unique thing to the fore. People don't compete by borrowing other people's things. That's not how you compete, because you never do it better than the originators. We have our own systems in Liberia when it comes to traditional cloth making. I don't know how many times you've been up in Tyria. I've been to many traditional cloth making villages where the old people do this stuff majestically. The rattan furnitures that we make, they last longer than your modern furniture you pay thousands of dollars for from the store. Think about if we could bring these things to the fore. Just think about it. I forgot I didn't bring my beads and my bracelets today. That simple beads and bracelet we can make in Liberia. Here, people yearn for it. The drum, the sangma drum, the jigme drum we can play. In our country, what are the ordinary thing we can just use like that? Here, universities are paying people top dollars just to teach it. One of those drums where I live in Canada, you know how much is that? It's $550 for one of those simple jigme drums. And they don't know how to make them here well, by the way. The mechanical process of making it is horrible. You don't get the same quality. So to answer your question, Esoteric, those buildings that you see in the village, you know what went into that? When you study it, I was talking about mathematics is in it. Technology is in it. Innovation is in it. Science is in it. But because we haven't paid attention with all of our PhDs in its subjects to study it and pull out all of the different aspects of it that make it come together, we rarely get our people to be uneducated people when they can build you a house that can last 3 generations without any mechanized process. But you use your expensive, modern mechanized process to build a house, and in 5 years, you get to start fixing it and repairing it. That is the difference, in my opinion. So if we want to really compete, let's start focusing on elevating our own innovations. Let's start evolving and improving it to the point where people can start to see and go like, that is interesting. I've never seen that. How is that done? Do we have more comments? So while we're waiting for more comments to come out, I will just say this. Being culturally astute and inclined help make. Let me give you an example. I like to use an example, Côte d'Ivoire. In La Côte d'Ivoire, culture is at the root of everything these people do. The short time I live in Côte d'Ivoire for. And guess what? Côte d'Ivoire, when you go and see the culture astuteness, even their music industry is a representation of their culture. We were in Côte d'Ivoire. How many of you saw an English artist? The greatest Ivorian artist. They sing not just in French, but also in their like traditional lingo. In fact, most of them sing in their traditional lingo than French. Very few of them, when they're singing music for international, when they're singing French, but most of their music, go to Freddie Mercury, Magic System, all of these guys from Côte d'Ivoire, all the people that we actually celebrate. There, when I was there, most of their music, their local music industry is littered with their dialects. And guess what? These songs have gone all over the world. Some of them, we don't even understand it. Nobody understands it except them, but we dance it. Congo, the same thing. So this is what being culturally astute means, because when you're culturally astute and inclined, you are able to innovate based on the uniqueness of who you are, rather than thinking about what else I need to go borrow from somewhere to kind of use again. So again, we'll be wrapping up soon. I know time has been far spent here, but I want to just say to everybody, we have a responsibility. UCLC, wow, this is my brother Daniel Henderson. Say I'm watching from Buffalo, New York. Good to see you, Daniel. I will say this again. The same way you people, Altobe says, well, this is the message that the Tipote has been preaching for almost 50 years, and we call him cheap man. Thanks for your contribution, Al. We say to everybody, you may all learn French. Me, from elementary school in Liberia, the people force French in our curriculum to learn. a language we do not even use in Liberia. But they say it is impossible to include our local dialects in our curriculum. Please help me understand how. French that we don't speak in Liberia, we do not use French in Liberia at all. So we refuse to learn the languages we're supposed to be using in Liberia. But we convince ourselves that we're supposed to be learning French when 90% of Liberians will never travel. 90% of us will never go anywhere. Maybe 10% of us will be lucky to get out of that country. But based on what we know and based on what we're seeing in the past, 90% will go nowhere. But they don't even know the moment they leave like Monrovia, they're lost. They can function anywhere else. You got people running to be representatives and senators in counties that they can speak one of the dialect there. Got people running to be president of Liberia. They can't even understand one of the dialects in Liberia. Who are you going to be talking to? Who are you going to be working with? Who are you going to be working for? That's why people don't appreciate our languages and our cultures and our tribes in Liberia. Nobody appreciates it because nobody needs to know anything about it. So they keep fighting to think they can replace it. In fact, they are on this drive. People think we should be replacing it because of their inability to come to terms with it. Let me wrap up on this last issue. Let me address it because a lot of people like to talk about quick to go to the Congo and Native divide. Let me say it to you today. You have a choice to make to either be a Liberian or not be a Liberian. This whole foolishness we've taken with this Congo and Native thing now, we need to move away from it because it makes no sense. Congo is not an identity. It's not a tribe. It's not a language. It's a backward mentality that was used in the Southern United States and other parts of the world to enslave our people for so long. It's a backward mentality that says the only way you can progress is to subject your fellow human being to less than human. So you choose. If you are a victim of that situation, your ancestors suffered that and you came back to Liberia, you choose. You are either a Liberian or not. If you can speak better, learn the Liberian English so you can communicate with us. If you can speak Kisi, you can find one tribe that you think you'd like to be close to. You are a Liberian, and well, Liberian English is also part of our lingo. So you choose. You're either a Liberian. We shouldn't be having anything called traditional and Congo. No, all Liberians are supposed to be traditional. Why should we have a country where certain people can be traditional and others cannot be? So it's up to you to decide whether you are a Liberian or you are not a Liberian. If you're not a Liberian, then figure out what you are. But Congo is the saying Zogo. It's the calling, when you call somebody Congo, it's calling them Zogos. Because it's a backward mentality that you must enslave other people to get ahead. And it's not relegated to one group. It's not only people who are descendants of American Liberians and people who came from the West to come back to Liberia that are doing it. The Bassa people, the Gio people, the Crown people, not everybody. By the time they get small money, they build one big house, they put 6 feet fence around, they put 2 dogs there. They go up interior, take their nieces and their nephews, bring them to Monrovia and enslave them. Today, as we speak, that's what's going on. And buy themselves high cars and call other people treat other people less than them. So you stop it. It's a backward mentality. The new Zogo, that Congo term is just equivalent to saying Zogos. So I want to put this nail in the coffin. You choose. You are either a Liberian or you are not. But before we close, maybe we can take a few more comments if we have a few more there. Anthony, we could probably take a few more before we kind of wrap things up here. Batum Kula, Dr. Batum Kula said Leo Likwele and Polo Johnson was suppose we had drum making classes, weaving classes for our next generation. It will make a huge difference. Thank you. To answer esoteric question, you are asking how can we compete with the world by being culturally inclined and astute? This is one of the ways Batum Kula just mentioned. What if we had drum making classes? What if we had soap making classes? What if we had weaving classes? The quality of the type of soap we can make in Liberia and other African countries, only a few people in the world can make it. The people got to make all kinds of chemical concoctions before they can make soap. We got all kinds of natural things that we're already doing. And that's why I want to thank Mahmoud Johnson, give special recognition to someone like Mahmoud Johnson, who's in Liberia using things like palm kernels to innovate. But guess what? We don't elevate people like the Mahmoud Johnsons, people like Armstrong Jagba, who's figuring out how to sustainably grow Liberian rice and other vegetables and products. We don't elevate people like that because we are running away from ourselves. Emmanuel Jesse said we need a complete decolonized process that will resonate with our cultural values. Welcome to the Liberian Dream, my friend. This is where it starts. It starts with all of us taking personal responsibility to build a new type. Finlay's son said Liberian English. I don't speak any tribe. You are still a Liberian, Finlay. If you don't speak any tribe, we'll not blame you for it. You speak Liberian English, you are a Liberian. If you're a Liberian, you're a Liberian. Finlay's son said, whoa, Congo equals Zogo. Yes, it's the same thought and logic. Beatrice Young say, one issue is the influx of fake hair from China and bleaching creams from the West in our markets. Who say our beautiful cornrows and natural hairstyle is ugly? We seriously need to begin it. Exactly, Beatrice, what I keep saying. People will pay 3 times more for the fake hair than pay $10 to get a nice cornrow on their head. No, but you tell them to pay $50 for the fake hair, then they call it human hair. But you tell them, say, pay $10 for someone to do a nice cornrow, they say it's too expensive, right? So let's come back to it. You are either a Liberian or you are not. And if you're a Liberian, you are a traditional Liberian. We don't have fake and traditional Liberian. We don't have non-traditional Liberian, traditional Liberian. So just stop using the Congo thing like it's a subset of being a Liberian. No, it's not a subset. If you are a Liberian, you are a Liberian. Batum Kula say our shea butter, aka donut grease, is huge. It's more expensive in the US, even in our country. It's huge here. People paying crazy amount of money for donut grease. But when you go to Liberia, our people would rather buy the fake chemical than they can pour on their skin. Only God in heaven knows what it's doing to them in the long run. So I agree with you on that. So let's say being a Liberian is not supposed to have a subset. The subset of being a Liberian is supposed to be our tribes. If there should be any subset at all. If we decide to go that route, then it is our tribes. And now Liberian English should be elevated officially to be one of them. Officially, it should be one of the ways we communicate. Esoteric say, what exactly is Liberian culture? It's a combination of a lot of things, Esoteric. It's the way we farm, the way we take care of food, the way we prepare food, the way we live, the way we talk, the way we interact. That's like, I don't know what you mean by like, you don't know the definition of culture, bro? Just take the definition of culture and put Liberian. The unique form of way of life that we practice is what is Liberian culture. And it's rich with all kinds of things. And I'm not here asking, advocating for one over the other. I'm here saying all of it, we need to be celebrating, we need to consolidate it so that it is present. It is part of our daily lives. Let me give you a practical way that I mentioned. One, how come our local tribes are not embedded into our school's curriculum? French. We were subjected to learning French, even though maybe I'll say 85 to 90% of Liberians will never travel anywhere. Most of us stay in Liberia, but we're subjected with French in our school curriculum across the board. What's wrong with putting Bassa? What's wrong with Crew? What's wrong with Gio or Kisi? If we can put French there, how come? That is Liberian culture. Kemo Edwards say emancipation starts from mental slavery. So the whole emancipation process about changing people's minds, let me say to all of us, we can only start it in earnest by changing our own minds. And that was the reason why I want to thank Focus on Liberia for providing me the platform to start this Liberian Dream show. Because it starts with us changing our own mind in an intentional manner. Being intentional about it. I'll wrap up in the next 2 minutes here because I know our time is out already. But thank you for joining me. And again, like I said, if you remember nothing else, the first pillar of the Liberian Dream we talked about 2 weeks ago was community-driven solutions, where we are saying, let me put it in a very succinct way, nothing about us without us. Any new solution or whatever that should be done should be with the total involvement of it should be from within our community. It can be we'll go and borrow from the we should be telling the IMF what works, but we don't have money. Can you help us with the resources to implement what works here? That was community-driven solutions. Today, we talked about culturally responsive systems. And basically what we are saying is anything that we're going to do, let it look like us. And let's dig deep in our way of life, our society and our culture. Those things that don't make sense anymore. Those things that we realize don't serve our best interests. Let's evolve our culture. You know what I said to somebody? Many of you come to the West. And when they ask you on your employment forms, do you believe that lesbian, gays, and heterosexuals all have the same rights and should be treated the same in society? You say yes. And then when you go to Liberia, you say you hate gay people or whatever. Then when you come here, who are you? You are a hypocrite, right? You came to this people's country. So you are okay with living in accordance to their culture and their way of life. You're okay with accepting it. But you're supposed to go back to your own country and pretend like because you say things are bad, so you have the right to stand up and insult it. It will not work. God gave Peter, said the government said it can't promote Liberian learning their local languages because we are struggling to speak the standard Western English. That's why they stopped the teaching of Basa in schools in our own country back concern worldwide. Can you imagine? All right. God gave Peter, you said it all. I don't need to. That the comment that you made yourself is officer. Let me just leave it like that. Batum Kula said a traditional culture practiced by our Zulus and chiefs in the tribes. I think he said meant the tribes and villages. Thank you for your response there. Batum again. Like I said, those are the two pillars that we covered. There are three pillars. Next week we'll be covering our third pillar. Not next week, the week after. Queenie Collins, good to see you. Queenie said, good afternoon, my mentor Leo Likpelin. Good to see you, Queenie. Welcome as well. I mean, we're wrapping up. Next week, we'll be talking about our third pillar. And after our third pillar, not next week, sorry, the week after next, it's every other week. I saw something about Bob Marley. Can we put that comment up again so I can we can see what it is? Paraphrasing Bob Marley, Emancipation Starts from Mental Slavery. Kemo Edwards, thank you. Next week, I keep saying next week, every other week. So the week after next Sunday, we'll be here to talk about the third pillar. And then after that, I'll be bringing on some exciting guests, both Liberians and non-Liberians, to just give you what this means in practice from personal experience, even though I've thought a lot about it. My brother Daniel Henderson said there should be a law against burning or cutting down palm trees unnecessarily in Liberia. But everybody, I want to thank you so much again. This was another beautiful edition of the Liberian Dream. And what is the Liberian Dream? Is this idea that we need to build our society in a way that every citizen of the Republic of Liberia sees themselves as an important part of that picture. And the three pillars that we have to do it on, we've already gone through two. The first pillar has to be everything about our country, everything about our communities must be done through community-driven solutions, because our community is a mixture of all of us. The farmers, the marketers, the teachers, the nurses. So if it is community driven, we all can participate. We cannot keep building a society where only 10% or 20% of our population always have the ability to manipulate or always feel important. Only 20% of our people are prioritized in our decision-making processes because we go and borrow everything from everywhere. Those of us who went to foreign schools and big universities in the West, we come here and borrow the people things and take it back. Our people are unable to participate or understand it because it makes no sense to them. Number two, we talk about today, it has to be done through culturally responsive systems. This is time to change the narrative now. No more asking the IMF, the World Bank, and NGOs to come teach us how to build a school system anymore, or to come teach us how to build hand pump. And then we call it, people have the audacity now in Liberia, everything they do, they call it modding, as if to say what we do is not modding. We're building modding hand pump. You build the same boreholes we've been building in Liberia for the last 40 years, and you tell us it's a modding hand pump. Modding school, you build the same old zingra or mud and dirt together that we've been building with for long time, and you come and tell us it's modding. So stop it. No more. You keep all the modding things. Let's go back to the primitive thing our people have done. Let's understand it and let's elevate it. You want to call it modding or not, that's up to you. But at this point, it's the only thing that will remain. It's the thing that we will always have. What you know is what you know. Is the one thing that nobody will take away from you. If you borrow somebody else's, trust me, you can never do it better than them. Week after next, we'll be here with the third one. My name is Leo Napolo Johnson, and it's been a beautiful time spending the last hour with you. And thanks to those who call in. Thanks to many of you who commented and shared the show with us. I came to you live from the beautiful city of Hamilton in Ontario, Canada. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I see you in 2 weeks.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Israel, USA, all we want. Liberia, Israel, USA, all we want. Liberia,